people of the YouTube. Another episode of ZFK TALKS. I've been on a bit of a hiatus, or maybe I've just been lazy, maybe a bit of both. You'll never know. I'm back with a new pair of sunglasses. Like I said, it's been a few months, and I actually just recently, about 2 weeks ago, did a podcast marathon, and we did a clean sweep, 7 podcasts in one day. Honestly, it was a blast. But 2 of the podcasts were in regards to cryptocurrency and Bitcoin. I didn't really love the way that I presented the idea of Bitcoin. I did a pretty good job, but in all honesty, Bitcoin is something that's really, really hard to explain in one sitting, and it's even harder to get people to grasp it. So I wanted to make another video today, and this video is why you need Bitcoin. Yeah, that's right, you, the other person on the other side of the screen here. I know I sound like a crazy loon, but I'm telling you, you need it. Well, that's awesome. I had to make a little cut. I'm kind of loitering here on Niagara Park's property, and someone is trying to repair a fence in front of me. I'm actually sitting right here on the gorge, right above the whirlpool water that flows from Niagara Falls, and if I look to my left, I can see the United States, and if I look dead ahead, I'm looking across here at Canada. It's kind of do or die. The sun's going down. I don't want to lose the light, and this is kind of similar to when you can't pee. Well, you got someone standing next to you. You get a little bit of that phobia of having someone watch you. So I'm just going to say fuck it and let this rip. So 2020, 2021, the two mixed together. Genuinely, I believe that this is a cryptocurrency renaissance, and we are entering 2021, the year of the digital asset. So yeah, I'm just gonna wing it here. I got a little bit of some notes below the frame that you can't see that I can pull from, because like I said, Bitcoin, man, complex shit. It's really hard to kind of break down what it is and why you should care and why you need it. So I guess we can start with, what is money? And I would argue that money is a belief system. And it all comes down to agreement and consensus on what that format of money is. Both parties have to agree on that money having the same amount of value. The same way as here in Canada, when you and I want to trade something that is worth a value of $20, we will exchange 20 Canadian dollars because we both agree that that is a fair medium of $20 value. Okay? And again, value just comes down to what we believe has value. It could be something that someone promises has value, or something that we see as a collectible, cash or commodity, that kind of stuff. It really actually just comes down to 2 factors: scarcity and abundance. Abundance is basically when something is overproduced, there's a vast amount of it, and due to the fact that there is a lot of it, it actually isn't really going to pull a lot of value. When an asset is overabundant, it's not going to be something of value, and this is because it has easy access. Anyone can get it. It's going to be cheap and easy to get. Scarcity is really like the biggest driver of value, in my opinion. When you mix that with high demand, it's a formula for great success. And when we see things that are scarce, we want it, and we will be willing to pay, a premium for it. So scarce assets are great. And yeah, so then the last part of what makes up money is kind of, or value, my apologies, is kind of like supply versus demand. Same thing. The supply is low, but the demand's high. You're going to pay a lot of money to get whatever that asset is. Whereas if the demand's low and the supply is high, better bet, you're going to get a cheap deal on that. So going back hundreds, even thousands of years, basically when people wanted to get their money out of cash and have something that would garner them some gains over time, they would get into gold, right? So with gold, gold has been used, tried, true, and tested for many centuries. And this is because of its predictable supply schedule. And what I mean by that is we can kind of predict and assume what the supply rate will be year over year because of years past with history. Gold is one of the most chemically pure substances we have on Earth, and therefore we can't produce it en masse in a lab. When human beings find something that brings them value, they will try to produce more of it, and they will try to fulfill their greedy tendencies by making more of it. Gold, you can't do that. You can only get it out of the ground. So with that said, we can kind of predict how much gold is going to be here for us year over year. And with that said, it makes gold a pretty scarce asset with high demand. We use it for a lot of stuff. So when people are seeing cash not performing well and the economy is not in cahoots, they will take their money and they will put that into gold as a store of value asset, better than cash. So once you take those three things and take them into consideration, what is cash, what is gold, and what creates value, we can get on to Bitcoin. Bitcoin is really an interesting instrument because it is created by an anonymous creator. His name is Satoshi Nakamoto. We don't know if this person is a man, a woman, what their nationality is, if it's a group of people, we don't know. Bitcoin, in my opinion, is a decentralized, trustless protocol. It eliminates the third man, the middleman in a transaction. Anytime you do a bank wire or anytime that you send money over the internet in cash, there's always that middleman, and we have to trust that middleman. Who knows? That middleman could go rogue. That middleman could charge you a lot of money, take your time, that kind of stuff. You're kind of losing control in that aspect when you send money around. And really, Bitcoin being this standalone currency that has no one that has created it, because we don't know who Satoshi Nakamoto is, it acts as a trustless middleman that is essentially just a programmed algorithm that we can trust because it is unbiased. It does not discriminate. It doesn't care who you are or where you're from. You can use Bitcoin to send money anywhere in the world, and it will do that successfully for you. And because it takes the power away from cash and traditional banks and whatnot, it kind of really does challenge the legacy establishment financial system. It is your option to opt out of the corrupt traditional system, and it allows you to be responsible as your own bank. Most importantly, what I think is super, super interesting about Bitcoin is it has a lot of very similar correlations to gold, and this is why we call Bitcoin digital gold. So now that we've kind of broken down the basis of what Bitcoin is, I'm sure you still might loosely grasp it, and that's okay because it took me a long time to grasp it too, and I am still learning. Bitcoin's kind of an endless rabbit hole that you journey down, and once you go down, you never come back. It kind of changes your life. So I'm super grateful that I found Bitcoin and took an interest to it because it's really improved my life and kind of my financial outlook. So now that we kind of have the basis of what Bitcoin is, we have to go back in time a little bit. Not that far back, but back to the 70s. What happened with the US dollar is kind of a shame. And the US dollar is the world reserve asset. Everything trades against it because the US is the most powerful country in the world, financially at least, and definitely militarily. What happened was, I believe it was 1972, there was an event called the Nixon Shock. All US dollars used to be tied to gold, which meant they had real value, and they had something to keep it in check. You couldn't just print money out of nowhere like you can now. So what happened with the Nixon Shock was the president at the time, Nixon, told the country, we are no longer going to let you have gold. We're going to confiscate all of it. We will return cash to you to, make it right. And we are going to take gold, the gold reserve off of the dollar, which means the dollar will be backed by nothing but our promise of value. And, in theory, that does work. If both parties, the citizens and the government, both agree that a US dollar is worth $1, then it works. But the problem is, when you have a dollar back to nothing and you have the tendencies of human greed, you're going to basically see a recipe for disaster. You're going to see, politicians and central banks have the ability to print as much money as they need or want, which means the dollar supply basically becomes ever more abundant, which means that the value of your dollar is deflating over time. Do you see the issue here? I'm sure you remember having some grandparents, aunts, and uncles that have told you, I used to pay 25 cents for a thing of coffee back in the day. Now it's $3. Why do you think that is? It doesn't cost that much more to produce it now. It all has to do with the basically the abundant pool of money and how it continues to grow and grow, and how that devalues how much a dollar can buy you. Do you see the problem there? So in today's world, looking back on 2008, now the crisis of 2020 and the coronavirus, it is just abundantly clear that we have problems with our financial system. Not to mention just the fiscal irresponsibility with politicians and money, but also the fact that people are financially illiterate, and that's on purpose. Current state of the economy is we see just how flimsy our financial system is. The ever-deflating value of our dollar is going to continue to happen. Fun fact, the United States has printed 20% of all US dollars ever created in 2020, which just, again, adds on to that argument of we have way too many dollars in the supply. Another thing that the US government has basically attested to is infinite quantitative easing, infinite QE, which means they are okay with printing infinite amount of money in order to get us out of this situation, which we kind of have no other choice. But if you're going to print infinite amount of money, that would hypothetically lead to a dollar being valued at $0. Now that will never happen, but you can get pretty damn close to it. And what do you think that's going to mean for your buying power as a citizen? Another thing to mention too, it has not happened here in Canada yet. I am not that well versed on how much is happening in the States, although I know it's happening there a bit. It's happening in Europe, is negative interest rates. That is another thing that the government can pull out of its back pocket in central banks to basically incentivize investing and spending. And when you have negative interest rates, that means that instead of making a yield on your money in a savings account per month at a certain percent, you're actually going to lose 0.5% of your money, or somewhere in and around that amount. And that basically incentivizes you to have to spend your money and stimulate the economy. So really, there's a lot of reasons here why the situation is looking less and less good as time goes on. And people are going to be looking for other things to put their money into besides cash. So back to Bitcoin. Bitcoin is actually the most secure network in the world because every transaction has to run through every single node in the system, and a node is essentially a mining computer, okay? And basically this mining process is what makes it similar to gold and why it's been coined as mining. And basically every transaction runs through the whole system, again making it very secure because there's no central authority. And essentially what's happening when you send Bitcoin to one address to another, in order to validate that transaction, there is a algorithm run through the whole system, and all the computer nodes are fighting to figure out the equation. The correct answer that is discovered by the first node is basically going to validate that transaction. Once that correct answer has been accepted or determined, that first node sends it to every other node in the entire system, okay? Once it's been validated by all nodes, the transaction goes through, and that first node that figured out the transaction gets the Bitcoin reward, which is what we coin as mining. That Bitcoin reward is new Bitcoin, okay? And basically that was the incentivized system of getting people to mine Bitcoin back in the early days. And it basically forces miners to be honest and not make false transactions because they want to get that Bitcoin reward. And that Bitcoin reward is very important because over time we have something called the Bitcoin halving. And my last ZFK Talks video was in celebration of the Bitcoin halving of 2020 on May 11th. And what happened is on May 11th, 2020, the Bitcoin halving occurred, and this only happens every 4 years. And basically every 10 minutes, miners would mint 12.5 new Bitcoin. On May 11th, 2020, that amount was halved to 6.25 new Bitcoin every 10 minutes. Okay? So do you see what that means? That means we are leaning away from the abundancy tendencies of printing US dollars. We're actually leaning towards making the Bitcoin supply more and more scarce over time. And this will continue to happen every 4 years. That amount, every 10 minutes, will be cut in half, while retail and institutional civilian demand for Bitcoin will stay the same or increase. So you basically have the principles of value working in Bitcoin's favor. The supply is ever dwindling and the demand is ever increasing. Basically, that guarantees price appreciation over time with Bitcoin. See where I'm going? I would describe this as programmed predictability. And again, this 4-year cycle is so important on Bitcoin. It kind of makes up the whole cycle. There's many other coins you could invest in, but they all run on this 4-year cycle that Bitcoin kind of demands. And because Bitcoin is so different than stocks and traditional cash savings, Forex, and that kind of stuff, it actually happens to be inversely correlated to poor monetary policy. And we're seeing it now in 2020. The worse that we try and band-aid up this situation with the economy in 2020, the more Bitcoin thrives. And if you're an early adopter in this space, and you can still get in now and be early, but time is ticking, the more that you will stand to gain from this situation. It is the early adopters that stand to gain the most. So what we're seeing now is huge companies are basically looking at their cash reserves and saying, holy shit, if we let all this cash sit for 5-10 years, it's going to be worth, say, 20% less. And companies don't want to do that. They don't want to see billions of dollars of cash reserves go away. Like, think of Apple. Apple's got $800 billion of cash reserves. Okay? So this is my next point. People are looking to put their money in places other than the dollar. Traditional investors are going to go for gold. More young millennial type investors like myself are going to go for digital assets and Bitcoin. Apple, for example, $800 billion in cash reserves. That's like a giant ice cube melting over time with inflation. I would basically, I know for a fact that Apple is not pro Bitcoin or crypto. They haven't said anything about it, but I bet they're accumulating in silence. And that brings me to my next point, the secret accumulation and the fight for Bitcoin. Billionaires and companies are covertly accumulating Bitcoin as to not mass induce a FOMO run on Bitcoin. They want to accumulate as much as they can as possible at low prices. And what I mean by FOMO is fear of missing out. Fear of missing out is what makes cryptocurrency markets extremely, extremely volatile when it comes to bull markets and going vertically up at certain times in a market cycle. What happens is people have the fear of missing out syndrome, and when they see that chart finally going up, they want in. They weren't smart in buying it when it was going down and looking scary and it wasn't popular to buy it. They buy it when everyone else gets in, and that's where people like me make money, because we buy the market when it's at its low and in a dip, and when it's kind of scary to do so. And we can stomach that volatility of it going down and losing 50% before it goes up hundreds of a percent, right? So basically, we have already seen that in the month of October and November 2020 with Bitcoin, and now Bitcoin profits siphoning over to altcoins. And you're seeing these crazy price runs, like on Bitcoin. Bitcoin just broke its all-time high from 2017 now in 2020 in November. We got one of my favorite investments, XRP, went up 250% almost. Just insane within a matter of days, right? And this is all because of human emotion and psychology and investing. And people that aren't really into this and don't understand it but have the access to get into Bitcoin and they know a little bit about it, they will buy while the market is going straight up vertical. And that's a risky time to buy. You want to buy when it's low, like I said. So with that said, that is why billionaires and companies are buying Bitcoin and whatnot secretly, I would assume, in order to not, set off the alarm and tell everyone else that they are accepting it and buying it so that others will. They want to accumulate while it's low. They want to be early to the race, and they want to be the ones that stand to gain the most benefit. So for you, I'm really happy that this video is turning out to be shorter than I thought it would be. Just on a side note. But for you, kind of a way I've heard it termed many times is getting off zero. I would really, really implore you to get off zero. And in my opinion, with the way that our cash is continuing to devalue over time, I think that it's really important to have some sort of skin in the game. That way you have some interest, you'll journey down the rabbit hole and learn more than I've been able to teach you about it here. And essentially you will learn why cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, you name it, are very important and why you should have some. It is the future. You do not want to have this boat leave you behind. And it's really like the biggest story of 2020 and the last few years that no one's hearing about. The news doesn't cover it, and they won't be covering it till it's too late. So that's why I'm making this YouTube video, so that hopefully some people will kind of become Bitcoin woke and see the boat that is here waiting for you but about to take off, and you don't want to miss that boat. Bitcoin, from technical analysis, should be reaching its peak cycle in 2021 in the fall to the latest, I would say, January 2022. The math doesn't lie with technical analysis. If we draw conclusions from the past with Bitcoin, basically right now it's at about, I want to say $23,000 to $25,000 Canadian, which is like high $19,000 USD. I would have to say conservatively, I see Bitcoin going to $100,000 to $125,000 US this cycle in fall 2021. Or if things get really crazy and people go really nuts and the FOMO really does come in, which it probably will, I can definitely see Bitcoin going up to $250,000 US this cycle. And another thing I forgot to mention is really one of the most interesting things about Bitcoin that I do love to explain to people is that max cap. We are currently at $18 million Bitcoins mined, and by 2150 we will have the full supply mined, and that will only be 21 million Bitcoin. 21 million Bitcoin. Do you realize that there are far, far, far more than 21 million millionaires in the world? How are they all going to share that? They can't. Not to mention there's been millions of Bitcoin lost due to negligence, because you can lose your Bitcoin. So it's impossible for everyone to have a share of the pie. That's why people are going to fight tooth and nail for Bitcoin, like myself. I'm going to be making profits to live off of, but I'm also going to be moving profits from my other holdings and altcoins into Bitcoin to accumulate more for the future. I definitely see down the road Bitcoin without a doubt going to $1 million USD. I just see that further down the road with maybe a decade or two down the road. So yeah, the sun's going down here. I got to wrap this up and get on to my next task here. And some of the things I want to wrap up with from my list here are: one, dollar cost averaging. So like I said, you don't have to be all balls to the wall, every dollar you got into it, like myself. Just dollar cost average, like a savings account. A savings account's gonna make you maybe max 3% year over year, right? Just put in $10 a week if you can't afford to do a crazy amount of Bitcoin. You're getting off zero and you're getting yourself some exposure. Be wary of scams and hacks. There's tons of people trying to scam you out of your Bitcoin, and it is pretty secure. So usually the only way they're going to get it is if you hand over the keys to the kingdom. So watch out for that. Another way of getting kind of screwed over with your crypto is keeping it on exchanges. So once you're comfortable with your exchange, I recommend Coinbase. That's the most user-friendly one. Figure out a method of offline storage. I use Ballot Crypto. Ledger Nanos are great too, but these are essentially storage devices that work offline so that your crypto is safe and unhackable. Mind you, if you have the physical wallet, which you will if it's offline storage, it has to be somewhere safe, because if someone gets that physical wallet and steals it, your crypto is gone. But it's much safer than having it on an exchange online where it could potentially be hacked, right? Defensive investing. Bitcoin, I think, is the safest play in the game for crypto, even though it's pretty volatile. You can get a lot more yield and money out of altcoins, but you need to know what you're really investing in. You need to do your research, and you don't want to be putting your money into random little shit coins, because there is majority shitcoin out there over like good altcoins. Some altcoins that I do recommend, to give you a couple: XRP by Ripple, Chainlink, Ethereum, Tezos, Polkadot. There's many more. Those are some of my holdings. And yeah, really at the end of the day, I'm not a financial advisor. I can't make any advice to you, but I would suggest you look into this at your own risk. Do your own research and due diligence, and you got to think about it as a balance of investing for profit and fundamentals. Besides the profit, there's a lot of fundamental greatness here, and I think you should be a part of it. And just keep in mind that you should never invest more than what you're able to lose, and be sure to realize that you're gonna have to grow a stomach for some volatility. You will see some of this investment go up and down quite a significant amount, and that is crypto. I'm getting a little distracted here now because my Zoom recorder is apparently now dead. That's awesome. Like I said, sun's going down. I really appreciate it if you made it to the end of this video, and I really hope that I did an okay job of explaining this. There will be more Bitcoin videos down the road. It's something I'm very passionate about, but I am still working on my elevator pitch, and there's a lot to cover. So if you enjoyed this video, please leave a thumbs up and comment, subscribe, maybe even share this video if you're interested in crypto. And yeah, can't thank you guys enough. This has been another episode of ZFK Talks, and I hope to see you guys soon. Peace.